Well, smart and sensible are not the words everyone is using to talk about this policy. And joining me now to talk about what this might look like and how it will change things as we move forward is Wes Winkel, who is the president of the Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association, also the president at Ellwood Epps Sporting Goods. Wes, thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
How will things change, do you think? And talking we'll start with from the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association, as far as we know that elite sport shooters would be exempt, I believe, from this freeze. But how do you think this will change, or how will this change people who are involved in sport shooting?
Well, just a couple points of clarification, if I may.
Sure.
So one of the points that was made was it limits the amount of handguns that are in the country, and that actually was done back in August when they stopped when they put an import freeze in. So what the announcement today is that the firearms owners can no longer trade guns amongst themselves. So it would not limit the amount of handguns in the country by any way, shape, or form. That was done back in August. The other point that we'd like to make is that the elite sports shooters is actually not the case. Kind of like in the sport of golf, the Olympic Games is not by any stretch the top form of shooting in competition shooting. There's many other aspects that are higher events that have more trained shooters and a lot higher participation rates. So most elite competition shooters are not exempted by this. So that's just a couple points of clarification. As far as what it does to our landscape it's devastating. 33% of what we sell in Canada when it comes to firearms are handguns. They're only sold to licensed and vetted owners. It takes 9 months of processing to get a firearms license. You have to have your home inspected for your storage capabilities. You have to have all your background checks done. You have to have checks done by your spouse and by people that have known you. These are the most vetted owners in Canada, and to stop them from transferring handguns amongst themselves, like the minister said, just makes no sense whatsoever. There's no public safety enhancement whatsoever. It's just a matter of trying to shut down the firearms industry and to ensure there's no retained value in the people that own these things. It's again, a punishment from our government for having a lifestyle that they don't approve of.
Right, because when you look at the freeze on, and if we take it apart, if we look at the freeze on transferring, so we could be talking about a scenario where there is a couple, two people, spouses, maybe they're legally married, who knows, but they live together, they both have licenses, they've gone through the vetting process, like you said, they are legal, law-abiding citizens, they both own handguns. It will now be illegal for one spouse, say a spouse, for whatever reason, doesn't want one handgun anymore, it would be illegal for that spouse to transfer it to the other spouse, and somehow by making that illegal, we've made the country safer?
Yes, it makes absolutely no sense. Same with if you have a father that's gone to the gun club shooting with his son for years. The father might be at an advanced age, 70 years of age. Now, when he's deceased, he cannot bequeath those guns to his son. They can't be transferred over anymore, even though they might have shot them together for years as a recreation at the same gun club. Again, there's absolutely no enhancement to public safety. All these people still own their handguns. And, if anyone wants to do something inappropriate, obviously it only takes one. So to stop them from transferring amongst themselves is absolutely, there's no enhancement to public safety at all. That is, it's an impossible line to draw.
What has it done for you as the owner of Ellwood Epps or others that own stores, or what have you heard from others as far as, like you said, the importation was frozen because I think they didn't anticipate, and I'm not sure how they didn't anticipate, but they didn't think when they announced that these rules were coming that there would be a run of people with licenses purchasing. So since they've stopped the importing and now what has this done to businesses like yours?
Well, like I said, it removes 1/3 of our business. And, we have an industry that employs 45,000 people across the country. So by straight math, we're going to lose about 15,000 jobs. But, people that have worked in this industry their whole lives and, again, have, with all respect, have jumped through a lot of regulatory hoops. They've went out and got their licenses. They've done their training. They've always maintained a clean criminal record because you have to have the license. We've always been told that in Canada, as long as we follow the regulations, we'll be allowed to participate in our sport. And then comes along this new Minister of Public Safety, and because of the fact that they run a few polls and they polled some people that don't understand what the rules are, Now they're going to say, that's it, we can no longer transfer handguns amongst themselves. And people that have invested their hard-earned dollars in these items now have no retained value. And, it's devastating. There's no other way to say it. I feel so sorry for, our clientele and our staff that we've had to take this kind of hit. I have many, many friends in the industry, good family people. They're volunteers in our community, and we're attacking the wrong people. It's devastating.
So who would be exempt then? Like you said, like when that one line that was in the story that elite sports shooters would be allowed to continue to buy handguns. Is it only people then that are at the Olympic level, or what is your understanding of who is still exempt?
Yes, we're understanding that it's at the Olympic level. Like most things when it comes to our current federal government's policy, they implement things before they're ready to go. So nobody in the system really is quite sure what that actually entails. We talked to the chief firearms officers that are in charge of approving these transfers today, and they're not quite sure exactly at this point what an elite target shooter is. We obviously know what they are, but that's not what the government's going to think. But in this case, we are understanding that anyone that competes in the Olympics or is training to compete in the Olympics, but only in that specific part of our sport. There's sports, many large competitions like IDPA and IPSC, which are even much larger sports and have a lot of training. And these are internationally recognized competitions with guys that have trained and ladies that have trained their whole lives to shoot in these competitions that are effectively being eliminated by this freeze.
And so what will the future look like for you as far as with this in? And again, I mean, it is difficult to kind of figure out, and we've touched on this before, this freeze or this idea of freezing things the way they are now. It's almost as though the government is saying we're at the perfect number of guns in the country because they didn't come out and ban them. They've instead frozen them. I mean, does it appear to you that the end game is that by stopping the bequeathing and stopping the transferring, once the guns start to break, they just won't be replaced, and that's how they're getting rid of them?
I think at surface that's what it would appear, but I think it's actually more shallow than that. I think what it is that they're trying to get a news cycle going where they can fool urban Canadians into thinking that they're doing something about handgun crime, when we all know that with the rules that they put in place with minimizing sentences and making sure that we have a revolving door criminal justice program, that they've made it a lot easier for criminals to be on the street. Instead, now they want a news cycle saying that they're doing something about handgun crime, when in fact they're not. They're doing what they've done a lot lately, which is attack a way of life that they don't approve of. And, that's where this is at. It's just all about a news cycle and fooling people. If you walk down the street with a microphone and you ask the average Canadian citizen what they think the handgun laws are now, they don't know at all. But then if you follow up and say, should handguns be banned, they'll always say yes because they don't think that they can do any harm. But the fact of the matter is that when you take the time to educate people, they realize that there's no way this will have any effect on public safety.
Right, because in essence, really, they are banned. They are banned, not like anybody can just walk in and buy one. Like you said, you need to be vetted. You need to go through the process of getting a license. You need to follow a whole lot of rules. You get put through the RCMP database to make sure you're following the rules. It's not as though it's a free-for-all. Anybody's buying them now anyway.
Absolutely. And don't forget, every one of these items is staying in the current place where they are now. So just like you said, it makes no sense that there's not anything being removed. It's just they can't trade hands amongst themselves. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's a frustrating day. And it's on a series of many frustrating announcements in the last year by the Minister of Public Safety. We're all left shaking our head.
Just one other question I wanted to ask you, and it's one quote that the Prime Minister touted out today as well. And it says 1 in every 3 girls and women who is hurt or killed, it's because a gun is used, which it's one of those quotes that's put out there to be a catchy soundbite, and people will hear that and be horrified. But what the Prime Minister didn't say when he said this was what kind of gun. And again, I'm not condoning any kind of violence or any of it is horrible, of course, but I find it quite misleading in that he doesn't qualify what type of gun, that it's probably not a legal firearm, and 1 in 3 means 2 in 3 is not. But what do you think when we hear quotes like that?
Again, just you identified it. It's a soundbite that's intended to give the illusion that something's being done about crime, when it's not the case. And again, they don't elaborate in the stats what's so frustrating about this current regulation being imposed today is that just on Tuesday, I was in Parliament testifying at the Security Council Committee discussing these exact measures. And this bill has not passed through the parliamentary process. So there's been no due democratic process. But like we've seen many, many times now with these order and councils, the government just announces that they're going to do this, even though it hasn't passed the process. And this is the case with this one. And when I was in Parliament on Tuesday debating, it came out that most of these stats they're talking about is trying to limit suicide. And, that's a lot larger debate than what we're talking about when it comes to crime. They don't discuss that in the public eye, but when you get into the parliamentary chambers, that's what they discuss is that, suicide is a lot less effective if there's no guns around. Well, that could be debated back and forth. There's lots of stats to go either way. But also, that's not the honest conversation they're having with Canadians in the media. They don't ever mention that at all in the public eye. They use stats like you used today because, again, they want to create the illusion that there's an enhancement of public safety.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a completely different conversation. You're right. Wes Winkel, thank you so much for your time today and for joining us to talk more about this.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
All right. That is Wes Winkel, president of the Canadian Sporting Arms and Ammunition Association, as well president at Ellwood Epps Sporting Goods.